Good morning and welcome to the Daily Tanya. Today is Friday, the 16th day of Iyar. Last night we counted 31 days of the Omer, getting closer to Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, which is the Yom Simchase Shel Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the day of joy of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That's going to be tomorrow night, Saturday night. And this is a day of that is connected to what we're learning. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the one who revealed the Zohar, revealed the deeper teachings of the Torah, the mystical part of the Torah, and this which leads to the coming of Mashiach. And the teachings of Chassidus, what we do with this Tanya class and other classes around the world, and we learn the Chassidus, which gives us the deeper understanding of Hashem, to know Hashem as much as possible, to connect to our neshama as much as possible, and that is what leads to the coming of Mashiach. So let's begin with tzedakah. Gedola tzedakah shemekareves v'sageula. Tzedakah brings Mashiach closer. So today we're going to conclude chapter 48. And we learned yesterday about Hashem's knowledge that powers our existence. And Alter Rebbe continues explaining this concept of Hashem's knowledge. Now, what does it mean when we're talking about God's knowledge? What is knowledge? So Alter Rebbe quotes from the Maimonides that God's knowledge is obviously not like human knowledge. God knows everything because He is everything. He knows something because He is it. I mean, the way to, Alter Rebbe used the example yesterday when a person imagines in his mind, he has something in his mind. So, by human being, whatever you have in your imagination, that's what's going to exist, whatever you think of. Except by Hashem, Hashem's thinking is the actual existence of everything. And so he explains that by human beings, you have three things. You have the person, the knower, and you have the knowledge. The person has knowledge, has the capacity of understanding, the intellectual capacity. And then you have the known, the thing that you know, the concept, the subject that you know. So those are three separate things. And when you know something, you connect to something outside of you. But by Hashem, they're not three separate things, they're one. Hashem and His knowledge and the known are all one. Now, if you try to understand this, the Rambam, the Maimonides says, don't bother because it's beyond our capability of understanding. We always think, try to understand things the way it is in our world. Right? But this is in our world, we don't have such a thing. By Hashem is the known. He's the knower, the known, and the knowledge. So, however, this is a statement that the Maimonides says, and there were some sages who said, who challenged the Rambam, said this is not, that you cannot say this about Hashem. This was specifically the Maharal, Rabbi Yehuda Leroy, and he said that you cannot say about Hashem that He is the known knowledge. But Hashem, we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is the Holy One, is above the concept of knowledge altogether. So the Alter Rebbe explains that really, based on the teachings of the Harizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, which he explained the concept of tzimtzum, the contraction, that we spoke many times, we can understand that they are both right. The Rambam is right and the Maharal is right. That before the contraction, when we're talking about the God himself, he's above the concept of knowledge altogether, like the Maharal says. But after Hashem contracted his light, in that level of godliness which comes after the Tzimtzum, there you can say that there is such a thing as God knowing, and he's the knower, the knowledge, and the known altogether. So let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe says, and then we'll conclude and explain why we're talking about all of this. Says the Alter Rebbe, Ach yediyose yizborich amiyuchedes b'mehuse v'atzmusei ki hu amada v'hu ha'yodea v'hu ha'yodua. His knowledge, however, which is united with his essence and being, for he is the knowledge, the knower, and the known. And knowing himself, as it were, he knows all created beings. Though not with a knowledge that is external to himself, like the knowledge of a human being. A human being, the knowledge is something outside of him. But Hashem is the knowledge, is one with the knowledge itself. The human knowledge requires getting to know something which is external to the knower himself. Not so God's knowledge. It comes from his knowing himself. For all the created beings are derived from his true reality. And again, if you try to understand this, don't bother, says the Rambam. And this thing is not within the power of human beings to comprehend clearly, and so on. Okay, so this is what we explained, quoting the Maimonides, this concept of Hashem being the knower, and the knowledge. As the Rambam of blessed memory has written, that God is the knowledge, knower, and known. And, says the Alter Rebbe here, what we said before, alluding to the challenges by some of the sages, says the Alter Rebbe, V'skimu imoi chachmei HaKabbalah, and the scholars of the Kabbalah have agreed with his view, as is stated in Pardes of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero of blessed memory. And this is also in accord with the Kabbalah of our master Rabbi Yitzchak Luria of blessed memory, as we explained before, the concept of the Tzimtzumim that the Arizal revealed, the doctrine of contractions. So when there is the contractions, there you have the light which comes after the contraction, and you have the essence of Hashem which is before the contraction. So this is in the mystery, meaning the doctrine of contraction. And the clothing of the light of the Sephiros in the vessels of the Sephiros, as has been explained previously in chapter 2. So the unity of God with the divine Sephiros is so absolute that even according to Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, one may safely say of this unity, he is the knowledge, the knower, and the known. In other words, even after the tzimtzumim, the light is so one with the creation. But before the above note, the Alter Rebbe stated that God's knowledge is united with his essence and being. Since he is infinite, his knowledge is infinite as well. It is therefore impossible for this knowledge to pervade the earth, and it must encompass it. This is true, of course, not only of God's knowledge of the earth, but of creation as a whole. Meaning that this is what we spoke yesterday, that is the two levels of the light of Hashem. There is the light of Hashem, which is the Memalik Alalmin, which is that light that is reduced and contracted to fit in each and every creature. And then there is the other light, the greater light of Hashem, the encompassing light. That is one, in that light, the encompassing light, this is where we say that Hashem is one with he's the knower, the known, and the knowledge. Now this knowledge, since it is of an infinite order, it is not described as clothing itself in the orb of the earth, which is infinite and limited. The globe of the earth is infinite and limited, while the knowledge is limitless, but as encircling and encompassing it. Even though this knowledge embraces its entire thickness and interior in actual reality, unlike the knowledge of a human being, which encompasses only the image of an object and not its reality. God's knowledge embraces the object in actual reality, thereby giving it existence, something from nothing, ex nihilo. Creation does not come about from the minute glimmer of godliness found within the object, which sustains it only at the inanimate and vegetative level, but from the supernal knowledge that encompasses and encircles it. And although this knowledge is responsible for the object's existence, it is still described as encompassing. For inasmuch as the knowledge is infinite, while the created being is finite, this knowledge is unable to clothe itself within the created being, as is explained elsewhere, that creation ex nihilo can take place only as a result of the encompassing light. So this is the end of this chapter 48, and here the Alter Rebbe explains the concept. This concept can also explain why there is the thing of free choice. Hashem does everything, and yet we have free choice to choose. So if Hashem does everything, how can we choose? But this is the concept when Hashem is encompassing everything. And being that he's encompassing and the entire creation encompasses us as well. So he's in us and at the same time not in us, not in a revealed way. So he enables us to be as independent being, and yet everything is encompassed by Hashem. So of course, it's a deeper concept, not for this class. Actually, it's out of the scope of this class. There's a story. The Alter Rebbe once was in when he was interrogated in prison, when he was taken for the teaching of Hasidus. Long story. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this story. So anyway, the interrogators, they realized the greatness, the wisdom of the Alter Rebbe, and they came to him. At that time, they had a new map coming out. It came out from the globe, the world, with America that was discovered. And so they showed the Alter Rebbe the new map. And Alter Rebbe looked at it and he pointed out, he says there was a mistake somewhere. And they went and they searched and they realized that the Alter Rebbe was right. And they were shocked, they were surprised. Alter Rebbe, an old Jew, not so old, but a Jew sitting in Europe with no internet, obviously, and no knowledge of the world. And how does he know exactly how America looks? The Alter Rebbe told him that in the first letter of the Torah, the base of Bereshit, the entire earth is there. It's described in the first letter of the Torah. And if you see the first letter, you see that you can know the entire world. Obviously, when I look at it, I don't see anything. I don't know about you. But certainly we're talking about seeing something from the knowledge that we know, the knowledge through the Torah. So God knowing the world through knowing himself. So what is this all about? What are we learning this? So this is part of the Alter Rebbe's guiding us, teaching us how we can develop love to Hashem. We spoke about in the last few chapters about the reciprocal love. We see what Hashem did for us. So this is also part of it. When we understand, we learn about the creation, what Hashem did to create the world, how much he contracted, what he did to have us being here. Ultimately, that will lead us to be able to develop more a feeling of love and closeness to Hashem. And this will continue with Hashem next chapter. And have a good Shabbos and a Freilich Lag Ba'omer. And may this be the time of the revelation of the Pnimius HaTorah, the ultimate revelation with the coming of Mashiach.